Folks, welcome to the Rational Red. I'm Michael. Today's game day. We've got Brighton at 4:30 in the FA Cup, and I don't think this is going to be a walk in the park in any way, shape, or form. Currently, Brighton are 11th. They're only 3 points behind us, and they've got the same ratio in the last 5 games: 1 win, 3 draws, 1 loss. In response to some of the videos I put out yesterday across here and on TikTok, a lot of people have sort of supported the idea of what I was saying about, the board putting their ego before the club and being a bit hasty sacking Ruben. And obviously, a lot of people weren't happy with it. They said, the win percentage was not good enough and his in-game management wasn't good enough. They're all valid arguments. I'm not here suggesting, I'm not like blindsided just because of the hope that I had that all the things that weren't good enough were acceptable. They weren't. There was a lot of things that weren't right. But I guess my point stems from the idea that I still believe there was a much bigger picture to look at, and there were some measurable stats to be encouraged by. And not just that, it's also just I'm exhausted with this merry-go-round of hiring and firing managers. As soon as it looks like the going's going to get a bit tough, we sack them and we start again. Now, it's a bit different with Ruben because obviously he wasn't sacked because of his results. Behind the scenes, news is coming out that there were certain things they weren't happy about, but ultimately he was sacked because he called out the board for not backing him in January. And anyone who comes in is going to need backing in January because that midfield is so desperate for an upgrade. So it would be ridiculous if they brought somebody else in on an interim and said, "Oh, actually, we will give you a little bit of money for the midfield." Like, why don't you just do that for Amram then? And just give him to the end of the season, see how it goes. But the league is very congested. Like, there's not a lot splitting between like 4, 5, and 6 and 12, 13, 14. It's very, very tight. But my argument really stemmed from the idea that I believed there was enough in the tank to see it through for a little bit longer, at least given to the end of the season. But at the same token, things like Everton, we go down to 10 men for over 2/3 of the game. That game should have been won. Like there's no excuses for the way that was tactically set up when they went down to 10 men. I'm not going to defend that. But at the same token, there's games where we've conceded a goal in the dying minutes of the game and we've ended up drawing. I mean, the amount of draws that we've had, that's a player issue. You can't blame the manager for absolutely everything. There are things that you can say, yeah, you're responsible for that. You might not have tactically set them up correctly, but there's times where he has set them up correctly and the players haven't done their job and they've let us, the fans, down because they've conceded a goal and we've dropped points. Some of those games that we absolutely should have won and saw the game out in a winning position would have comfortably put us in second or third place in the league. Comfortably. That is not an Amram issue. That is a player issue. So I take on board a lot of the comments people are saying. The win ratio, the percentage ratio, again, I think context is important. Last season, look, this is a guy we all know, right? No secret. He was strong-armed into coming in November. He made it very clear it's a bad idea. You're not ready. Your team's falling apart, and I'm going to come in and completely mix up everything that they're doing and put them in a system that none of them can play. They're failing in their preferred system. So what on earth's going to happen when I turn up? He knew this. We knew this. The board knew this. Everything went tits up, and what a surprise, he had a terrible ratio. But they didn't sack him because obviously they foresaw all of this. But the idea was you have that bedding in time, you learn the league, get familiar with it, and then starting in the next season, things should improve. And they were. That opening game against Arsenal, we lost 1-0. That's what matters at the end of the day. But it was like, holy shit, we played really well there. I think even Arsenal will say, in fact, I think Arteta did a thing saying sometimes, you just get a bit lucky. Most people would agree we should have won that game. We didn't, and that is ultimately what matters. But there's enough writing on the wall to go, all right, things are taking a turn. There are chances that have missed. Sesko missed some sitters with his on his headers. Like, again, he's learning the league. But these are things that you can't blame a manager for. And if those things did go the way they should have done, then the league would look very different and people might have a different opinion of where Amram was at. But I fully take on board people's criticisms. Here's the other thing I will say is, in spite of all of that, I don't think Amram should have got the job in the first place. That's the truth of it. I mean, you're talking about that analogy of putting square pegs in round holes. Our club, our footballing philosophy has always been like fast attacking football, wingers, a back four. Why on earth you would go for a manager who plays religiously a 3-4-3 and doesn't really like to deviate away from that? Why on earth you'd go pick that manager and bring him into your club who don't play that system, and not only that, don't have the players to play that system, and even worse, don't have the budget to buy the players to play that system? It was a ridiculous appointment right from the beginning. But once they'd committed to it, they paid the money. It's like, right, we have to get behind it. Because Amram, as a character and as a coach, I was fully on board with that. I liked his philosophy. He was the first coach, I believe, that's come in to actually try and rip up those foundations where there's a lot of negativity with player power and bad attitudes in the dressing room. Get rid. Things like that are so crucial, and it can't be overlooked because how many managers have we been through of various types? Your Mourinho and your Ollies, etc. We've had all different styles of managers. They've all failed. And a lot of the time, the reason why they failed is because we believe that the players have given up, thrown them under the bus, stopped playing for him. Bad attitudes in the dressing rooms that spread out amongst new players that come in. This was the first time it was like, enough of that. We have to get rid of that. We have to get rid of that weed and pull it out. And it's the only way you're going to have long-term success. And I believe he was the first one who was actually actively trying to do that. Once you've started to get that dressing room on side, things become easier. And you can see, like, Ahmad saying was like a father figure to him. Of course, you know, there were some players that, you know, like Rashford won't have anything nice to say about him. I'm sure Cobby as well. But that's okay. You can't please everybody. But ultimately, most of that dressing room is well known. Are gutted that he's gone, which is going to lead me into today in this game because I'm slightly nervous about it because Fletcher seems like a really, really lovely guy. I've not heard one person say anything negative about Fletcher. Seems like a really lovely guy. He's got his heart and soul into trying to get United to play a certain style of way that we've all kind of grown up and used to watching back in the day, which is fine. Right, I've no problem with that at all. My issue is a lot of these players, at least 75% of that dressing room, as far as I'm aware, are not happy that Amram's been sacked for various reasons. One, because they built a bond with him. He built a cohesion. I mean, look what happened when he left Sporting. All the pictures, all the players throwing him up in the air. That guy builds teams. He builds a unity. He builds a cohesion. And we saw it at Sporting. He did it. They were devastated he left. When people flipping cry. I mean, it's ridiculous how much they were upset about how much he left. But that's what he built, a culture. He started to build that culture into United. Finally, we had a dressing room all on side. Even when the chips were down and we weren't doing well, they didn't give up. They were still playing for him because they bought into it. And they're going to know better than us. We just see everything on the outside and we report based off the news that we hear. They're in the thick of it. They'll know way better than us. So what I'll say is bear that in mind. Like, we get news clippings and reports. If all those players, despite all the up and down results, were still playing for him, it tells you there's way more positive going on behind closed doors than we probably even know about. So a lot of those players aren't happy that he went. And when you're trying to build a culture and trying to build a unity, my slight issue is Fletcher's come in. That first game that we played last week, I felt like we looked like lost puppies for quite a while. Like it felt like there was something was disjointed, which obviously they've been playing a style of football for a while. Fletcher's come in, no training session, so obviously it's going to be a little bit all over the place. But if the players are genuinely that upset and pissed off that Amram's been sacked, as opposed to when you get a new manager and you get a manager bounce, I have an inkling that we're going to see the opposite effects. We're going to get a bit of a manager lull because that spark that they had with this guy has just suddenly been taken away from them. This system and this progress that we're trying to make on a journey together has suddenly just been cut and stopped. You know, and it's like you obviously are going to feel a little bit lost after that. Now you've got to adapt to somebody else who you don't like. No offense to Ollie or Carrick, who get it, but they don't want them there. That wasn't the plan. They haven't built a relationship with this guy. And the other thing, if it looks like Ollie is probably going to get it, Ollie was thrown under the bus by some players that are still there. The only players that have come out, and well, not come out publicly, but is regarded as saying that they support Ollie, is Bruno and Maguire, because they didn't really want him to go last time. The rest of that squad either don't know him that well or have any relationship with him, or they were part of the squad that threw him under the bus last time. So it's awkward. I don't think this team are going to be like, yeah, come on, we'll play under Ollie. I literally think this team are going to be mourning the loss of Amram, and we're going to see it on the pitch. I don't think they are going to be all joyous and all buzzing because they didn't want the change. And you've got to bear that in mind. It's a big, significant difference to when you normally get a manager bounce. Like the football shit, everyone's complaining, tools are down, but getting your manager, bang, let's get rid of that system we don't like playing anymore. Let's go again. I don't think we're going to have that. I don't think that's going to happen at all. I think we're going to have a bunch of players who are going to be like lost souls a little bit and just trying to just go through the motions of doing what Fletch needs and then if Ollie and whatever, and eventually it'll probably come all right. But this interim period where we're transitioning over, I don't think it's going to be that great. I think there's a possibility, I know I could be completely wrong, I'm just going off how I feel about it, but I think there's a possibility that these players may actually not be up for it. And that's not because they can't be arsed. I just think they're reeling off the fact that this manager they built a relationship with and we're going on a journey with has now been sacked. I guess we'll see. Time will tell. I just realised my thing's on low power mode and my screen went off. So I guess we'll see. Time will obviously tell. But as far as Brighton's concerned today, I think we will win. I just think it's going to be a mess. I think it's going to be scrappy. I hope Shea Lacey gets on. That kid, I tell you what, man, that left foot with that rocket twice. My heart was in my mouth when that first one hit the crossbar. I was like, what the hell? So listen. I think you can probably expect if he does. I don't think he'll start because this is not a game that's going to be a walk in the. It's not like City yesterday winning like 10-1. We're not playing someone like that. We're playing someone who's like right on our tail in the league. So this is going to be a tough game. So I don't think you should expect any academy players starting. But I would say that 60 minutes, 65 minutes, I think Lacey will come on to try and turn the game around. I hope Sesko scores again. I guess we'll just have to see. But thinking not like going into any tactics or anything like that. The general mentality of the squad, based off that first game with Fletch and going into this one, I do feel that this squad is going to be mourning the loss of Amorim based on what we know that the vast majority of them are pissed off that he got sacked. And I think we're going to see that on the pitch. Slightly lacklustre, maybe a little bit, unsure of themselves, like just a bit of uncertainty floating around the squad, which, I hope doesn't last too long because us as fans, we suffer, we have to go on this emotional roller coaster. So we'll see. So I'm going to leave it there, but that's kind of where I'm at. Just following on from yesterday, I do kind of feel like I still stand by what I said, and I fully take on board everyone else's comments about why they think he needed to go. There isn't, I don't think I'm right and you're wrong and vice versa, because I do also think, as I said before, Amorim probably shouldn't have got the job in the first place. Like, that was a bad appointment. And a lot of my frustration from that video does actually stem from, it kind of goes beyond Amorim. Amorim was the guy that I really believed in. I thought, I always look at the bigger picture. I don't hyperfixate on certain things. I take everything into account and make my decisions off that. And that's why I was optimistic. But even if Amorim wasn't the coach, it was someone else, it's more that it's the frustration that we've got a board who's incompetent of making the correct decisions. I mean, when you go from the Ten Hag situation to then the Dan Ashworth situation, now a snap reaction on this Amorim thing, most people agree that you shouldn't have just sacked him just like that. You should have take a breath, think about things, and then go from there. But no, bang. Look at Ineos's record with Nice. They've had 6 managers in 8 years or something ridiculous. These guys hire and fire because they get the wrong appointment in the first place, and that's what I'm frustrated about. It's Amorim, it being a potential good manager has been gone, but it's also highlights the frustration that we're left with this incompetent board, and we're going to continue to suffer with their poor decision making long after Amorim. That's kind of where my frustration stems from. So I guess time will tell. But I'll do another video after the game, see how we get on. Up the Reds.